This is the August 20th, 2024 meeting of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board. Present are members William Hine, Larry Jones, Susan Sherry Clark, Tim Ganettis, Jeff Gibbons, Vicki Kahn, myself, Ed Wisnowski, and do we have any members plugged in via Zoom?
No one's come up yet.
No one has come up. Well, along the way, that may happen. Okay. This meeting is being conducted under town and New York State law, providing for in-person and virtual participation. Individuals may undertake remote participation by going to the town clerk's web portal and clicking on the live link at the top of that portal page. The online Zoom participation is being moderated tonight by Peter of CTV. For remote comment on a particular agenda item, please notify CTV via the chat or raise hand function relative to an agenda item so that comment may be made. To reduce wait times on our meeting agenda, for those who are participating in the room, our practice is to advance the agenda items to the top and proceed from there. Commentators will need to provide name, agency if relevant, and place of residence at the time of making comment. Our minutes are rendered subsequently by individuals so that that information is important.
Do I have her seat?
Good evening, Martha.
Just check. There you are.
And present, we now have Martha Green.
Beg your pardon.
I am also present if you can hear me.
Samantha.
Yes, hi.
We have Samantha Malone present via Zoom. Thank you, Samantha. I'm glad you found the webpage.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, the first item will be the minutes of July 16th, 2024. They were distributed for review, and I don't believe I saw any tweaks suggested by any members of the board. With that in mind, I'll move their adoption. Seconded by Vicki. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 The minutes are approved. Thank you. We can move to the first item at the top of our agenda. 703 Flying Point Road Watermill. This had been on our July agenda for review, but it was absent some elements for completeness. Last week we received an engineer's report and some interior imaging from the agent, John Bennett. I think he signed the email, whatever. And with that, Susan, you arranged a site visit.
Yes,
Which you conducted
yesterday.
yesterday.
And thank you very much for the engineer's report. It was immensely helpful, the interior and the exterior pictures. And before we arrived, you had an idea of, what we were looking at. And also, showing that cement block in the basement, I was mentally, there's a whole history that there had been a wing on the house moved to the west. And so some of the things that we saw in the interior pictures, you could sort of maybe reconfigure what the house looked like before that portion was moved. But getting back to 703 Flying Point Road, there's a subdivision in process, and there are actually two houses on this property. One has the AYB actual year built of 1800 and the other one 1850, even though we found an article that might indicate that second one was built at a different time. But sometimes the one that we are actually reviewing today, the one on the would be referred to as the West House with 691 Flying Point Road, and that's what's on the porch. When I took that exterior picture, they still had the 691 on it. But there are two of them. The house to the right is not part of the application, and so we're not discussing that. But it was also related to the family that owned the one on the left. But the White House, the picture up on the left is how it would have appeared from the road approximately. I had 2000, it would be 2002. I changed that because that's when that tax was taken. And to the right was a sketch when I interviewed the former owner, Buddy Burnett, in 2013, a couple years before he passed. He had that sketch on his wall. So he had some other family memorabilia and some of the sketches. But the house in question, the West House, the White House, 691 Flying Point Road, was reportedly built, I said, around 1800. It appears that the maps go back to Stephen Burnett, who was a descendant of the original settler Lot Burnett. Now, Lot's house, we heard from Buddy, is no longer extended. It would have been a 1700 house. But this particular house was likely, it's possibly shown on the 1838 map also, built by Stephen Burnett and passed down through the Burnett family. Buddy said that he and his family lived there between 1948 and 68, and prior to that, his father had lived there. But at other times, it was owned by the people who had also the East House. She was a Burnett, it was Elsie Burnett. She married Jonah Rogers, who was from Bridgehampton and up in the North Sea area. And that's where they lived, and it was part of a boarding house. So it was not actually always necessarily a Burnett residential home. These properties sort of seem to change hands a lot depending on what family members needed it, or what was an economic proposition. But around the turn of the century, a lot of rooms and houses were being rented, and Jonah and her husband eventually Jonah and her husband, Elsie and her husband Jonah eventually inherited it from the family, and on the cottage list they rented the West House or the East House. So when we went for the site visit, it was very helpful. You could see some original features like the 6/6 divided light windows were still there. That front porch would have likely been added probably in the mid 1800s because of the pediment. It wasn't original. It's still there and semi-functional, but those windows also have storm tracks on them, so it protect them a little bit from the weather, but it would detract. We, as a group, there was Ed and Larry and the town historian, Julie Green, felt that it lacked a lot of period details remaining. So even though the house is from the 1800s, there isn't a lot of historic fabric left in it, which is unfortunate. It has been sitting vacant for a number of years, so it's the deterioration. On the front, and most of the house is shingled and was painted white, but now that paint is flaking off a lot. On the east side, there was vinyl siding, and on the rear, vinyl siding, and on the rear also new windows. Pardon?
It was aluminum.
Okay. So, and in addition, if I'm not sure if you got the report that I sent today with the site visit if you flip down through that, I think it should be the second. Yeah, it's the vegetation now that has surrounded the house. So with that vegetation surrounding the house, it was difficult to see the house as it was in 2002. And I'm sure that didn't help the deterioration much, but you can see on the rear of the new, that on the right in the middle row, the new kitchen, windows there. That's the peeling paint. But the 6/6 windows is pretty amazing that they seem to be original and still there. My guess is right where you see on that right-hand side, that's probably where that wing that moved over to 675 was, because a lot of that section is where you see the cement block, and it's been reconfigured, because it was a boarding house, and they were maximizing how many, I'm sure, people could stay there. So this particular house, I would doubt that Elsie and her husband, Jonah, lived in it much, unless they lived there while they were renting the east house, possibly for more money. But to the rear, there were a couple cottages and a barn. And also in this area, there are another still 6 to 8, 10 Burnett houses. Burnett Jennings Rogers, even the Sayers. If you see those names with the houses, that's because a female Burnett married a Sayer or a Jennings or a Rogers, because they were all Burnett houses. But the Burnetts were an interesting family. Besides farmers, they were baymen. The people who ended up owning this house, it appears, to be built in. The one on the right appeared to be built by a Samuel Scott from North Sea, but his mother was a Jennings and his wife was a Jennings, and so was Luther's wife, a Jennings. So it sort of was still in the family. He seemed to have built the house. I think they were whalers up that way. It appears almost to be a whaling house, but he only really was there for a few years. And I saw in the deeds that there was actually a lease to him. So my guess, he didn't own the property. It was probably leased and went back to the Burnett family. But since they live so close to Mecox Bay, all of Luther, the whole family, and Jonah, who lived in the East House, they were baymen and fishermen. Jonah almost drowned and was rescued. At some point, I think it was around 1896 is when he rescued the flagpole and sold it to a wealthy local man from Watermill, and it was installed in the green on the Watermill until it deteriorated in 1950. So I guess the Burnetts are really synonymous, with this particular area. This was, I believe, the second Burnett homestead, but because of the fact of the years that it sat vacant and the various uses of the house, we felt that there wasn't a reason to object to the application with the demolition. I personally would prefer if the house would be adaptively reused on the property, rehabilitated, but since it's going to be a smaller parcel, less than an acre, I assume, I realize the chances of that happening, it probably won't be happening. So we recommended that we didn't object to the demolition, but also I would recommend, adaptive reusing any historic materials that were found, be it the 6/6 windows, the hardwood doors, and I think you saw the batten board. If there's anything in there that could be used, salvage for other people to use. And the other thing of interest is the landscaping. I think there may be one of the famous Louis Philippe linden trees in the rear yard. There is a large tree right between the house and also a garage. Yeah, you back up to my photos, about page 2, I think. Well, you can show it there. Yeah, right there it is. But when we reviewed the property to the west at 675, where one of the additions went from this property, they had, I think, 5 of the linden trees that were rescued by Luther, I think, as I remember. And this one to the rear, okay, if you flip up a little bit to page around 2, I took a picture. It appeared on the subdivision map. Okay, right there on the bottom right. But it's between the house and a small garage.
Yeah. Well,
But
just for
it could-
clarification, when you refer to Louis Philippe, you're
Yeah.
referring to,
Okay, right, and that's actually there. Thank you, and that's part of the report. But you all are not reading that and can't get. By the time we get to that page 16, but Louis Philippe was a schooner that ran aground around 1842. And I think you probably know the story better than I did. And that the only way they could get it off the sandbar was to lighten the load, so they threw over landscaping and wine, whatever they had aboard to lighten the load, and they moved on their way. So locally, between Southampton or Watermill and Bridgehampton and East Hampton, there are Louis Philippe 1842 roses and lindens, beech trees. I'm trying lots of landscaping that a lot of people claim came from the Louis Philippe grounding.
George Washington
was
slept
that-
here. It's the George Washington slept here syndrome.
Yeah. But these, since it's the Burnett family and there seemed to be a group of them, it seems, and they live right, it happened right off of Mecox Bay reportedly.
Right.
But that one, I mean, hopefully, it's historic. I mean, if it is one of this 1842 linden trees, but it also would be valuable, if not to the homeowner, but even, for sale to somebody. There are people who buy things and move them off the property, but anything but possibly cutting it down. But it'd be worth having that. I'm not an arborist, so I cannot guarantee you. I looked at the leaves. They appear to match up with some of the linden ones that I saw online, but it'd be worth having evaluated. Right behind it is that garage that you see in the middle. I'm not sure. It's not listed. It's going to be demolished, but it's not listed in the town. You'd think 1920s, 1930s, something. It's got the little, clipped gable up there, but it will also be demolished.
So to summarize,
Was that?
Yeah. You're recommending that basically try to retrieve any historic material that might be left in the house. But and otherwise, there's no objection.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And I will just, say, and it's not, I'm not sure what condition it was in a number of years ago, or if the neglect and the deterioration is just have happened in the last several years during this subdivision problem, but subdivision process. But it would have been really wonderful to see it, when it was a little bit more in its prime. So, but that's to summarize it. So this report is highlighted in yellow because if I add something, I need to remember to switch the pages. So the final copy of the history will go to the agent for the homeowner for their information. There's information about the Burnetts, photos from the Watermill Museum in there, a few pictures of Buddy I added there at the end. But it seemed to stay in the family for a number of years, but now it's we have a history of it. So.
Thanks, Susan, for all your attention to it and the effort to get a site visit and to documented as best as possible. It was a great
And
job.
I will
so.
say it's very thankful that the one to the east, the east house, appears to be well maintained and well taken care of, and it's looking at it from the road, it's a lovely, lovely home. So we're happy that one
All right.
remains.
Thanks.
So I'll take care of
Any
that.
comment from colleague members of the Landmarks Board with respect to Susan's report and analysis? No? Nothing to say. Okay.
If the report recommends no objection to demolition, I have nothing to say.
Okay, that is basically it. Will you file the paperwork on it,
Yes.
Susan? Okay, so.
Thank you. Thank
Very
you,
good.
Susan.
Right.
Thank you for your devotion to this. Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate it. I really do. I'm here asking for it to be demolished, but I would be remiss not to thank you for the passion that you put into this, and I thank you very much.
Okay, 7:20 is followed by, we will go to 36 Jagger. Jagger Lane, and let me, Bill, you had the ability to review a review.
Yes.
Uh,
This will be the fourth time that we've reviewed this property. The first time was in 2021 when the property was being subdivided. At that point, the entire area was known as 34 Jagger Lane. When it was subdivided, it created 34 and 36 Jagger Lane, with the subject dwelling being on 36 Jagger. So in 2021, we reviewed it for the planning board recommendation. There was an 1874 dwelling, a 1936 barn garage, and a 1936 shed, and at that time they were all slated to remain. As the planning board process went along, that was in April of 2021, in July of 2021, the planning board had been notified by the Board of Health, Suffolk County Department of Health Services, Office of Wastewater Management, that they could not approve the subdivision because there was a dwelling on the property that did not have a CO or an approved sanitary system. So the owner at that time chose to, he would put in the application that he was going to demolish the house. So we did object to the demolition of the house. Next time we looked at this was in 2023 when we got an application for alterations and additions to the 1874 dwelling, as well as alterations to the 1936 barn and garage. And at that time, the 1936 shed was to be removed. We reviewed the work that was being done. We had no objection to the construction application at that time. Now in 2024, the fourth time we're reviewing this, we're reviewing it because the dwelling has been demolished without the benefit of a demolition permit or our current review. Stop work order has been issued for the property dated May 13th, 2024. The 1936 barn garage is still there, and I believe the shed is still there. We approved of the work for the barn garage, and I believe that that will be continued as we had approved it. On the other lot, 34 Jagger, the bottom photo there, a new house has been constructed on that vacant lot with a pool and a pool house behind it. The upper photo is the barn garage, which has an AYB of 1945, I believe. And Stephanie and I felt it was more 1900 for one half and 1936 for the other half. The shed was also 1936. So we're hoping that those will continue to be developed as they were originally approved. So this property is not listed in the AKRF, and it is also not listed in the Hamlet Heritage Report for Eastport, West Hampton, and Remsenburg. The area was originally settled by members of the Jagger and Halleck families. Jagger Lane, which got its name from the Jagger family, shows up on the maps in 1873, but the property was not developed. In 1902, there are 3 structures, and it's shown as the estate of S.R. Jagger. In 1916, the historic map shows it now as the estate of F.R. Jagger, which we believe was Fred Jagger. Odd that it was the estate of F.R. Jagger because F.R. Jagger was still alive. So the drawings for the proposed house resemble the house that was demolished. The floor plan and elevations are very similar to what was originally there. So in that way, I can't complain about the design of it because it's very much what was already in place. Oddly, and perhaps our guest tonight can answer a question on this, the 1900 foundation, which was done in pieces and parcels of brick and block and poured concrete, it's shown on the drawings as that's remaining.
We are fixing what needs to be fixed. We are. I'm sorry.
Podium.
I'm Dan Purcell, one of the owners. So we wanted to restore this house. I mean, that was our plan. That was the drawings we had built up. You know, we didn't want to take it down one dumpster at a time. It cost us about double to do it that way. What happened was when we started working on the house and we removed the roof, the framers that were doing the demolition just kept finding more and more rot. I mean, this, between the the time it took to subdivide this was about 4 or 5 years total. We've been involved the last 2. The house has been in real disrepair, holes in the roof, broken glass, no gutters. The wood rot was all the way down the walls. And we held on to walls as long as we could. We had the front and the back were still there. Our framer took it upon himself to take them down without us being here. But our intention was to rebuild this house, and our plans show we continue to want to rebuild this house. We want to keep the barn as it was. I mean, we're changing the use of it, but we want to keep the look of it. And the house we built next door was to complement this house. You can tell by looking at it, it's a classic farmhouse look. So there was no nefarious intent in this. It just circumstances dictated. Unfortunately, there was too much rot for us to save the house. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. So do you plan on keeping the foundation? It seems like
we are
brand
keeping.
New house would be nicer to put in a new one, but.
I mean, we agree, you know, but I guess we decided in the interest of time that we were going to, you know, keep as much as we could and just try and repair what was there and now build a better house. I mean, a better constructed house instead of 2x4 construction, 2x6 construction, you know. Like I said, no nefarious intent. We ran into a circumstance that was sort of beyond our control, and circumstances dictated that we couldn't build a safe house the way it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I did put in the report that I had no objection if you did want to remove the foundation and put in a new one. So.
I'll discuss it with my partner, my architect.
Okay. Okay, so there was a stop work order on the project. Work is stopped. The foundation shows up in the photos. The drawing is very much matches what was there originally. Yeah, there's the foundation. So.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out to be a good thing because the foundation was very unsafe, crumbling in parts.
So basically, sum up.
Okay. So I thought that we should register an objection to the demolition of it because we didn't get a chance to review it. Although at this point it's too late to do anything because the house is gone.
And any recommendation as to what's in place versus removing what's in place?
Well, I said that I didn't object to them removing the foundation if they wanted to go further. There were some things on the original house that were deleted in the previous alteration design. Some bay windows on the front, and I guess a pediment over the front door and things like that. and a couple of little details of trim. If you could put those back in, there's the bay window, and it has a little ornate apron over the tops of the windows. We were hoping for something like that to remain in it. If they could come back to the proposed design, that would be nice.
I mean, we already have the plans drawn. Like I said, we were trying to keep this as original as possible. We did get approvals for the building that we want to build. We're keeping it in the, in the realm of what was there. We do appreciate classic Hampton's farmhouse style. Like I said, we even built the house next door to complement this house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the recommendation is in the form of advice, basically, for the project, so.
Yeah.
I'll discuss some detail with my architect and see if we can put some of the original charm back in, maybe.
Okay. And I did make a statement in the report that even though it's going to mimic the original house, it doesn't replace the historic value of it.
Understood. And like I said, our intent was to keep it. I mean, we appreciate what you do, and that's what keeps things so beautiful out here. We've restored a number of houses in Manhasset where we live. That's our style. We like to keep things traditional and as they were, but sometimes you just run into circumstances where you can't do it, and that's kind of what happened to us here.
Mm-hmm.
I think basically that's it. That you filed the
Yes.
paperwork on that to the building department, so that'll be it. We'll have an official objection for it disappearing without a permit, and some advice as to maybe retaining or evoking an original decorative feature. So.
Sure. I mean, I think we're doing that with the style of the house overall, but we'll try and find some places to add original charm.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Having finished that, we can go to 13 Ogre Lane. Here we have an event that took place in July. The house has disappeared, and when we received word that it disappeared, I asked Vicki and Susan to go out and take a look, and they took some photographs of what remains of the parcel of 13 Ogre Lane. This is a house, a cottage that was built in what is called the Art Village, on the western margin of the village of Southampton, and dates back to the founding of the Artist Colony and William Merritt Chase and his plein air school of painting from the 1890s to about 1900. Number of houses and his studio compose the Art Village. This was identified for a long period of time as an important cottage in the Art Village.
It was
And so
called
it's just-
Shingle Top.
Yes, and so
It had a name.
so its disappearance has caused some consternation and some upset, reflected in some public discussion that has gone on. Just to provide a overview of of this. So this is 13 Ochre Lane, right here. Next door is a vacant parcel which once contained 11 Ochre Lane, which is historic landmarked cottage in its removed place at 8 Studio Lane here. So these houses and cottages basically reflect the historic district. It's not an official historic district of the Art Village. The original project was to renovate the cottage. That dates back to January. We reviewed it in January 2024 and gave some suggestions as to design of the renovation to take place so that it didn't seem to become so altered or swallowed up by the projected renovations that were involved. It now has arrived at the point at which it has a stop work order that was issued on the property. The stop work order is dated July 17th, 2024. And this is this is a rather massive tree trunk that it is pinned to. The property I visited last Thursday. This property, as you can see, is very cleared of all vegetation, concrete swimming pool, slate patios, all development and construction that was on the property has been removed. So that presents a certain kind of question whether this basically was a planned demolition or whether, as it has been presented to us, an accidental event in which the demolition was pursued after some event that took place at the house. Just to indicate, how much is involved, you can see here the swimming pool, the patio, an outdoor hot tub, and other parts of the property were totally removed from the property. So the application we have is to quote approve or not object to the demolition application and send it back to the building department. I hope I've explained it in a kind of context that captures everything here. I don't know, are there things that members of the board want to inquire about or ask questions about or opine about? Martha, well, let's start with Martha.
So this house got torn down without any permission. And I mean, obviously, personally, I would object because why wouldn't we object to it? It's appalling. It's an important area. But my question is more, who is responsible for that? And what is the thinking behind tearing it down? Do we know why it was torn down? Is there anyone?
Well, we can get an answer to that question.
There's a gentleman.
Right. We can get an answer to that question by asking Miguel Weinstein to come up and describe what happened.
Good evening, members of the board. We had an approval for a large addition and renovation to this house. We work with the board in trying to keep the design with the original cottage look at the front, but we were going to do a second floor addition, a rear addition, and a west side addition to this house. So to do that, we had to remove the roof from the entire house, and then we had to remove the rear of the house. And as we were working on the west side, in the original project, the only items that we were going to try to keep standing was the south wall and columns that they were what we were trying to kind of mesh with the rest of the addition, as it was approved by the board, and we work with you on that design. I actually a small sketch you're showing. See it, but that really these are the walls that we were trying to keep. The rest was going to be removed, and this was part of the approval that we got without the permit. So as we were doing the work, this bungalow, it was built on brick foundation. The west and south portion of the brick foundation was in really bad shape, and caved in, and basically there was nothing to keep. So we were going to rebuild it in any no matter what. We were going to rebuild it. The original house in 1995 was completely redone. All the siding, all the roof, even all the windows were taken out. They put Anderson windows. So the house didn't have any elements, and the board was there.
I saw it, and
Yeah.
I don't disagree that you know what had been replaced, but it still had a number of elements. When I walked in, I had a sense of being in an old home with the fireplaces. It had the lammy brick. One of them was painted, and one was plain, but
All done in 1995. Yes. They all were redone.
it's heartbreaking to me. I mean, because I saw the house. I've seen other ones in the art village that have been lifted up, put on new foundations, and stabilized. And the fact that this one's gone, I find it really concerning.
But the plan as approved and reviewed by the board indicated that we were changing that. So we didn't do that without any consent from the board.
Because I remember mentioning, I thought,
Yeah.
well, because if you lift it up, you could really go down. You could do wines, larger things. And I was assuming it was going to come back before us a second time for a change of plans to lift it up and put it on the new foundation, because whenever a person started, they would have realized that brick foundation. I think Vicky was did you go in the basement?
Yeah, yes.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember you.
But anyways,
She was
and then I guess what I find concerning and past that is that Vicky and I went and there was nothing left but 1.5 bricks. There was nothing to see. It was gone.
Well, to do this, the approved work, we had to remove most of the house. We were going to just keep really the front.
But the process, I
But,
guess, for our board is we go and we photograph before the demolition and we see, to see what
Right.
is
The
there, what
application was
historic
to keep the
fabrics
front,
left,
and there's
what.
no more front, there's no more house.
And
Yeah,
surely you should have known
something,
that when you
something,
started.
but the fact that it's
Yeah.
there, it's been regraded.
We
I
have.
mean-
Miguel, may I just
Yes.
ask? I do remember, we did have a long discussion with you, and we went through the plans.
Correct.
So we understood what your intent was, and we thought it was great that you were going to try and retain the facade of the house, which you thought was feasible. What I have difficulty understanding is what transpired that was so dramatic that the entire house had to be demolished, including the foundation, regraded the entire site without even calling
The-
for an inspection, which is typically done during the demolition process. And I had asked at our last meeting if we might see some of the, usually the contractor will take progress photos of his work or her work, but we didn't receive any photos, so we could have seen what actually transpired that instigated this dramatic demolition.
We sent some photos
The
to,
progress photos, I didn't see those
with
construction
the
photos.
showing the brick foundation cracking, and that's where we had the problem in the front of the house. But we had various neighbors walking in the property while they were doing work. The worst case was one of the neighbors with their two 4-year-olds coming with their electric cars, driving through the construction site, and we thought we couldn't at that point we couldn't have pieces of wood that fell and things around because we felt that we could get sued.
But with all due respect,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein, you could have safeguarded the site. That
should have.
that is
Should have
required by
safeguarded
OSHA.
We-
So I don't quite understand what transpired, that you left the site open so that children could actually play
No,
or
the-
cross the
no.
site while you were doing work.
The
It's only
even with us being on site, people don't think that they I don't know why the neighbors don't think that they should not cross through and come in, and they do.
But
So-
it's not the neighbor's responsibility, it's the owner's
we-
responsibility
Many
to
Correct.
projects
safeguard
have
the
fences
site.
put up,
And we were
temporary fences.
correct. And as we were doing the work, we were telling people to please stay out of the site because they were working and it was dangerous. And it seems that they didn't want to understand that. But we tried to keep them out of the site. But once we after 4:30 or whenever everybody goes, we don't know if people are going to come and somebody could get hurt. It was a decision of insurance. We didn't want anybody to come and get hurt for something that already was down.
Did you
So-
put a fence up?
We didn't put a fence. We were just
So
starting to
you
do.
just
I
told,
mean, there's a whole
told people
business
to stay
of
off the-
renting fences for construction sites.
The-
I was
It's
just
only
at one
two-
today, and you only had two ends to cut.
two
cut
ends,
off.
New Lane and Okra, it's very
we-
narrow
uh,
property.
the trucks and the machines and
Gates.
everybody was working and we were going to do it as the moment that it happened and we have to
I guess I find it difficult that there aren't, I mean, when I have
yeah
anybody working, I'm always out taking, I have people clipping the hedges, I'm out there taking pictures with cell phones out there, there's nothing
we
to
sent
document
we sent pictures of the foundation
document
We didn't get
the
those.
process
The
of what
pictures that-
happened
I sent
and
them to Nicole.
The pictures that we received and she distributed are 3. These are the pictures.
No, that's the original house. No, I
right.
sent to Nicole pictures.
Those were the ones that came to us that you sent.
there were a couple in the applications, but they were just a close-up of a pipe or a brick,
Correct.
but not
That's what,
the
right.
site, the site itself. You can't,
Well, that was
You can't even
the area.
determine where that picture was taken or what it,
That's the foundation, showing the foundation of the brick. They had
it's-
done some work and
could
originally-
be, I mean, I'm sure it
Yeah.
is at this site, but they could be from anywhere. There's no context of it being on site.
Well,
Is-
was from the site.
Is the owner
Right.
financing this, self-financing, or is there a construction loan on this?
No, they are
Or-
self-financing.
They're self-financing, I see.
These are the pictures you're talking about.
Correct. The brick, you see the brick foundation was in really poor stage, and it just crumbled.
But that's why they
Almost.
lift up that
That's
number
why
of
you
moving
stabilize.
companies, a very standard
We-
thing done here. They lift, you see it all over.
But
Lift up, put
we were not
foundation
saving.
under.
We were not saving the rest of the house. We were only saving one wall with some columns in the front. From the application that was approved, we were doing a whole new second story and adding to the back and adding to the west side.
Well,
So
yeah.
there was nothing to lift.
As a part of means and methods, you were responsible for securing the parts of the house that you were going to save, so that you could do that construction.
So, I'm,
Correct, but
That is not on the board to look at the drawings and
no, we don't do
ascertain.
load.
no.
We,
And I agree. Is the foundation was in really poor
I
condition.
think it's a thing, and this goes back to the other one. We can require an engineer's report for every application that comes in front of us.
Mhm.
That's standard. You need an engineer's report, or we can waive them. And we typically waive them for construction to save the applicant who may be putting on a porch or changing, smaller things or even larger things, to save them time and money and undue,
As a courtesy.
just red tape doing that. Because we know whoever's building it is responsible for, determining what's, architecturally safe, what engineers, they'd be consulting with an engineer ahead of time anyway, but we don't require you to submit that. Or we have it, but I'm almost inclined to, and then for demolitions, if it's a smaller 1939 house, we often waive them because we're not going to ask the homeowner to do that, except for the ones that are in the survey, that they're under AKR survey, and it's a noted historic resource because we want to know if it can be saved and it can be moved. But I'm almost inclined now, if anything comes up that's an AKRF, say, make everybody submit an engineer's report prior to that. I'm throwing that out as a
Right, but
suggestion.
that's not germane to this
Yeah,
particular
let's not.
situation. I just don't understand why you didn't call the building department and say, we have an issue here, a dramatic issue, can you come right now? And they would have. They're literally a 5-minute drive from the site.
Right. Once it happened, was we were was almost the end of the day. Actually the building inspector came. Somebody called because a few minutes after we were cleaning, the building inspector was there, but we didn't want to leave items sitting all over the place, pieces of wood and whatever was left over.
Is there any reason why the other elements of the property, the landscape specimens that were there, were just?
There was nothing. Everything was. I don't know if you remember when you visited. Most of the trees were dead, and the only one there was a big tree in front that you saw the trunk of it. We contacted the arborist Bartlett in Southampton. They are based in Southampton, and they said that the tree was completely dead. So that was the only large specimen that there was there. The rest were just some bushes. Most of them were dead, and there was nothing there. That's still there. All the trees in the back are still there.
mean, there was a lot removed from the property besides the house, that, you know,
all-
without, you know, any contact with the town building department and,
It was just some bushes and some dead trees, and as I said,
There had been a steep drop off there,
Mhm.
you know, at the rear, if you look from New Lane, and now it's just sort of like a level little slope. It's been, the
They-
topography's different, it appears to
well,
be.
they just left the dirt over there because they were leaving and they wanted us to close the site, so they left some dirt on the back of the property.
besides, have you applied for any permit from the town of Southampton?
We made an application.
Otherwise,
We made an application for the demolition.
well, hear me out, for a different property.
For a different property.
Is this the only time you have applied for a building permit or a demolition permit just for this property? You haven't been associated with any other projects in the town of Southampton?
Yes, actually, I'm building 31 New Lane that is in the rear of that property. We are just finishing the house. The next, that's 35. The next, right there, what is empty, we build over there a house that is already
Let me
almost
just
finished.
Get this out here. This,
Correct. It's almost finished. Actually, it's my son's house, and we try to stay with a modest home that you could go take a look. I think fits nicely in the neighborhood, and the property 13 Ocker is actually my brother-in-law's property, and they also Chang Ji, that is my sister-in-law, has been living in this neighborhood for many years, and she wanted to actually keep the property for herself and build a house that resembled to the old existing cottage, because she didn't want to sell the property to avoid that the developer will come just and build a completely different thing. Actually, the next door neighbor had approached her many times because they wanted to build something in that property, but Chang Ji, that is the owner, really wants to keep this property for herself and build the house as what we designed, and that was approved by the board.
Did you receive a summons from the building department?
Yes.
Okay. A citation for the work?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Any other kinds of questions about this? I think our response will be, and this is what I would propose, that we will file an objection because it was done without a permit, and refer the question to the building department as to whether or not they pursue the enforcement that's associated with the summons that was served. So, is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, okay.
We have a couple people on Zoom.
Oh, we have someone on, oh,
Yeah, a couple people on Zoom.
okay.
Don't we put them on now?
Yes, please.
Hello,
Good evening. Who are you?
my name is Linda Riley. I'm an Southampton Road in Southampton, New York.
Mhm.
And I represent the neighbor directly to the east, also on Oka Lane, next door neighbor. And I'm here, unfortunately, on Zoom. I would have liked to have been present, but I got COVID, so I couldn't. And my client would have liked to have been there too, but he is abroad at the moment. So it's, we want to say, first of all, that I want to point out that some of the language that's been used here tonight is really inaccurate. Somebody mentioned that the house had disappeared. Miguel Weinstein said it happened somehow, that the house fell apart. My client talks about being at home one evening in his house and there was suddenly this large blast, just a huge blast, and came to find out, that it was literally being blown up. I don't know how else it disappeared like that. It disturbed the neighborhood and it shocked the neighborhood. It shocked the neighborhood because this is a man, the builder, who is building in the neighborhood, as he said. He's building actually a house that does not really fit in with the neighborhood at all. So that's the concern about what he's about to build here. On a very, a precious house. It was a cottage that had historical heritage. It was mentioned on all of the inventories as something with a real history to it. It was similar to a sister house that used to be on my client's property. When my client needed to do something about the terrible disrepair that other house known as Lack-A-Lot was in, we did engineers reports. We took reams of photos that we brought into the board. We spent a lot of time and a lot of money documenting everything. And in the end, after applying for all the permits, including the demolition permit, in the end, that cottage was moved to a similar location in the Art Village, which has already been discussed here. My point here is that an objection seems like a very, very tame response to something that occurred, it seems to us, was done in a wanton disregard of what the process is, what they knew the process is, and with some ridiculous excuses. I mean, if you want to keep neighbors out, and they should have kept neighbors out because the place was in good shape, it should have been construction. That's, as was pointed out already. Anyway, we will follow up with the summons and everything else, but what I really want to say at this point, nothing's going to bring that back. You can't even bring any brick or piece of wood back. And we get that. We understand that nothing's going to bring it back. But there ought to be a really, really hard look at what is going to be built there now. He shouldn't be allowed to just work off of plans that he came in with before that pretended that he was saving the foundation and this and that and the other thing. There's nothing, not a brick. So we ought to be taking a better look at those plans and make sure that and make sure that it meets code. Maybe there shouldn't be some grandfathering here. Certainly we want to do something that is in keeping with the community. And I just think it needs maybe to come back before you for the plans that are being built with a keen eye. And that's all I have to say for now.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And if there is as well an interest in reducing them to writing for our file.
There is. I would like to see something in writing.
Okay, thank you. We'll look for it at Town Hall address to landmarks, right?
I will submit something in writing.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Returning once again to.
Just is a point, our only two choices, I mean, because she said she wished there was something more than object, but that is basically
purview.
what we're,
That's all we can do.
I mean, if you would explain that, that's what we're limited to
At the moment, yes.
at the moment, right, so that's,
Right,
At the moment.
right.
so unfortunately, that's,
More review. In terms of what's going to happen next.
Right. So, okay, with that, I'll file the paperwork associated with this project to the building department with the advice for them to look after the question of enforcement relative to the absence of permit and review for demolition of a historic resource, so, okay.
And, when may I submit the written, you'll wait till I submit the written stuff and submit it all together?
You can submit it at any time. We'll forward it to whatever agency might be taking up this issue beyond us. So that might be the building department or,
The building department,
yeah.
you just said you were gonna refer this
Right,
to the building.
right.
Right.
That's our
So-
normal practices to respond to the building department on applications that are submitted for review.
Okay, I will be submitting something in writing to you with the understanding that it is going to be forwarded to the building department together with your report.
Right.
Right,
Okay,
thank you.
okay. So, nothing else on 13 Ochre Lane? Right. Thank you for coming
Thank you.
and explaining and describing in more detail than some of us had before. And some of us were more familiar, and some new board members are less familiar with what preceded this event. The summit's learning about the art village even, so. Anyway,
We are really
appreciate
sorry,
your-
and we will try to rebuild as it was with the concept that we were trying to have originally, and that's all what we could do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
again
very
for-
much. Good night.
For comment. Okay, so we have demolitions, and we now have
He's been playing a shell game from the beginning.
we have two people here for 111 Rose Hill Road. This was not on our August agenda. David, you were,
Yeah, they wanted to just consult with the board
Oh,
about
okay.
what they would need to submit for a demo application.
okay. So, before we go there, let's take 132 South Country Road, 132A South Country Road, which Bill has done a re-review on
Yes.
again.
So previously, we looked at this in 2021 for a demolition application for a severely deteriorated barn. And Stephanie and I both agreed that there was really no saving of the structure, and we had no objection to its demolition. It has been demolished, and it has been replaced with a slightly larger barn with a covered porch in a similar location. There's also a silo on the property. That is not in this application. Tennis court, a pool house, a pool, and a shed. None of those are in this application. This time we're dealing with the house. The property is listed in the AKRF as RSHD 17. It's also in the potential Remsenburg Historic District. The house is the 1871 Ocean House. It was a former boarding house constructed and operated by members of the Tuttle family, one of the founding families of the Remsenburg-Spionk hamlet. The current application is for construction of additions and alterations to the main house, including replacing the windows, which are already replacement windows. And the property is also noted in the 2004 historical profiles of Eastport, Spionk, Remsenburg, and West Hampton. South Country Road retains a high density of historic resources in good condition, including the Academy, Southampton Town landmark, that is located next door and was formerly part of the subject property. The 1797 map of the town of Southampton was reviewed, and it shows South Country Road had been opened at the time. Several structures were present in the central portion of the hamlet, but there's insufficient detail to determine if the subject property included these structures. The 1853 map of Suffolk County shows South Country Road is present. The subject property had structures reported to be owned by D. Tuttle, which we believe was David Tuttle. It's interesting because the names go back and forth between Tuttle, Tuttle, and Tuthill, Tuthill. The sons and fathers often have, one is the Tuttle and the other is the Tuthill. So somewhere in the recording of this, things seem to have gotten a little confused. In the 1873 map, it continues to show the original name of Remsenburg still as Spionk, and at least one building is noted on the subject property, but no owner's name is shown with it. Spionk was settled in 1740, and the earliest settlers were Abraham Halsey, son of Thomas, who was also son of a Thomas, John and Thomas Tuthill, Joseph Rogers from Bridgehampton in 1760, and the Phillips family, consisting of 4 brothers, William, Josiah, Joseph, and Moses, all from Brookhaven in 1757. The village at that time had a Methodist church, a schoolhouse, and a population in 1880 of 196. By 1902, the area had been renamed Remsenburg, and more details are shown on the map. The subject property, including the Academy property, to the east are clearly identified as owned by J.W. Tuthill and included the current dwelling, the former Ocean House boarding house, the Academy building, and at least 2 outbuildings, one of which is likely the former barn, which was previously relocated to the rear of the property and then recently demolished and replaced. The 1916 map depicts the property in more detail, shows at least 4 outbuildings to be present in addition to the Ocean House and the Academy building. The Ocean House appears to include several attached volumes, at least one of which has since been removed. Others have been added, and the property owner at the time is not noted on the map. There is a vintage photograph of the house in the early part of the report. One more, there we go, which shows a covered porch over the western volume of the house, and then a wing that starts to head out to the right-hand side of the photo, which also has the covered porch over it. In 1995, any porches that were there were removed, and trellises were added across the front of the house. So those trellises are now to be removed, and they are going to replace part of the porch in the center part of the house and then extend it across a later addition on the right-hand side of the house. Stephanie and I both discussed that we'd like to see the porch continued over to the western section of the house, as it was part of the original porch on the house, and also using the original photograph, trying to emulate the original turn post and things that were on the porch. The left-hand side of the house, in the early photograph, there was a wing of the house there that has been removed. Yeah, you can just see it sort of 2 windows peeking through the trees there on the right-hand side. Yep, so that portion of the house is no longer in existence, and it has been replaced with a slightly lower garage with an addition behind it. So that's all later additions. Interesting, the photo that you passed by there. One more up. This is the Tuttle family in 1900. I'm not sure where the house was, but that's the family in 1900. The thing that I thought was interesting is we often say that we don't like the windows to be replaced with 1/1 windows, but there's a house in 1900 with 1/1 light cuts in the windows. I thought that was kind of funny. The next photo down is a shed that's on the property. It has a very rustic sort of a trellis out in front of it that has been replaced at some point, but that shed is still there. All of the outbuildings are not listed in this application. They are all meant to be retained as they currently are. So one of the things I'd like to keep in mind as we look at this is that Stephanie has met with the owners and discussed possible landmarking of the house. So anything that's going to be done now that we feel would, I guess, make landmarking more difficult, I'd like to make comments in the report so that the owner has an idea of anything that might slow them down as they go forward in the future. One of the things is that the windows are 1/1 windows. They're also noted in the drawings as black. The house currently has white windows with a blue trim, but I don't believe that the blue trim was original. In that early photograph, the windows appear to be white, the trim appears to be white. And the windows all appear in that portion of the house to be 6/6 light cuts. Although on the first floor, in that vintage photograph, the windows appear to have a transom above them, but then the windows seem to be lower, and the sill of the window is almost on the floor of the first floor. Looking at the house now, the siding has been repaired under those windows with a panel again, just making it apparent that at one point the windows did go lower. So again, Stephanie and I both discussed that it would be nice to do the 6/6 windows in white, and also to do something with at least 3 windows under the covered porch where they extended closer to the floor. So this property was originally developed in 1750 by John Tuttle, also known as Hunter Tuttle because of his love for hunting. Any of the buildings that he had on the site are long gone. He left the house to his son Joshua Tuttle, who left it to his son David Tuttle, who left it to John W. Tuttle, which was John Webster Tuttle. John Webster Tuttle left it to his wife Margarita Tuttle and to his mother Maria Tuttle. They lived in it, as well as John Webster Tuttle's daughter, Ruth Marguerite Tuttle, who married Algernon Brewster Jane. They farmed the property until 1960. And Maria V. Tuttle and Margarita Steinberg Tuttle lived in the house until 1968. So they owned this the Tuttles owned this property from 1750 to 1968. So I did add a list to my report of things that we thought were important if we were looking at it for landmarking. Installing the white windows versus the black windows, matching the original details and profiles of the exterior white painted trim. On the front facade, providing 6/6 window cuts to match the original dwelling, not the 1/1s, extending the 3 windows down towards the floor to resemble the original photograph. The current drawings show the 3rd floor window, or the 4th floor, I guess it's in the attic. There's a little transom window just under the overhang. The current drawings don't show that, so we were hoping that that would be replaced. Continuing the covered porch across this western volume, which is not on the drawings currently. Constructing the covered porch with the roof and post design, matching the photograph. Removal of some portion of the evergreen hedge to allow public viewing of the dwelling, because right now, if you go to some of the first photographs that I have in there, nope, down further. Nope, the other way, sorry, further into the report. Yep, 1 or 2 more. There we go. That one and the next one show a very dense hedge in the front, and we often talk about keeping some of the view, there you go, some view of the house to the public if it is landmarked. So Stephanie and I discussed some removal of some of that hedge. And although the garage doors are not meant to be replaced now and they exist in a later addition, we discussed perhaps doing something with the garage doors that was more in keeping with the style of the house.
Are we looking at a cliff gable? That's an angled little gable at the very top?
Yeah, right, a jerkin head. Yep.
Yeah, jerkin.
Yes.
So the house has been remodeled a fair amount of times.
Yes, I believe that the fireplaces in it are all new, as well as the chimneys. They've all been replaced. The stairs appears to be original. There's some other original details inside the house. The right-hand end of it where the garage was added on, and the addition behind it, which was done in what I call the Wrightian style, a very Frank Lloyd Wright. The style of that addition, as well as the interior of it, are very Wrightian in style. Again, not in keeping with the remainder of the house. But yes, there's been quite a bit. The main volume on the left-hand side, which is the 3-story volume, is the original portion, and the T of it that goes off to the right is also fairly old as well. But that starts to go into a Wrightian addition on its roof, then the garage, then the right addition behind it. And then there's decks and hot tub and other things that are on the back of the house, which again were added much later. Most of that and the current addition are on the rear of the house, so none of them would be visible from the street.
So just for context, this is the Remsenburg Academy here.
Correct.
And if we go down one more.
Right. Now, I may have been a little overzealous, but I did put that in the report as a landmark. Stephanie did go to the town board meeting Tuesday a week ago.
This is 126
Yes.
South Country Road.
Correct. Yeah.
And the town board approved a walk-on resolution designating it as a landmark.
Okay.
So I'm not sure everybody was caught up on that.
Yeah.
So this is a very historic area.
Yes.
Certainly worthy of looking at as a historic district for preservation purposes. And this is a historic structure, given its long association with the Tuttle family, as well as being a turn-of-the-century boarding house of fair significance in the town of Southampton. So with respect to the proposed changes, you've got some advice as to
correct
what you would hope?
We didn't object to the construction application, but we did have some recommendations on how to handle it, particularly if it moves forward into landmarking.
Any thoughts from colleague board members on Bill's presentation?
I think extending that porch is a nice idea.
Yeah, I think the porch should be extended.
And then
in the window, certainly
we have the owner here. Do you have anything you wish to add to it, or?
No, thank you, and thanks for coming out. And we were discussing the extension porch.
Okay, great.
We talked about when you do that.
Yep.
Yeah, the windows will be real important.
So will you do the honors of responding to the building department on it? Thanks very much. And heavy duty work. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have so one other kind of late item, there'd been some interest in the question of the potential demolition of house at 111 Rose Hill Road. And we have the owners here or representatives here to come up and pose your questions to the board.
So, good evening. Brant Reiner from Nelson Pope and Voorhees here on behalf of the owner and the applicant. The applicant is Camp Rose Hill 1 LLC. We are here tonight sort of in an unorthodox fashion, and we appreciate the board just allowing us this opportunity just to have a quick discussion with you to help hopefully streamline this review. We are hoping to commence construction this fall. We have started the demolition permit application process, as you know, or else we wouldn't be here. We have uploaded the documents to the online portal. Just as recently as today, we put the final documents up there, so of course you haven't had time to formally review the materials. But again, we wanted to take this opportunity just to discuss the house with you and the need to demolish it and talk about some of the structural issues. So that way, when we get to the September meeting, hopefully things are a little bit more straightforward, and actually you have more information if you choose to go and visit the property to help you understand what you're going to be looking at. And also, tonight, we wanted to just make sure that we have everything before you that you would be expecting. So as, again, to try to get this completed in one meeting at the September meeting. So with that being said, I'm here tonight with Michael Lamont, who is the architect from Stell Lamont Rouhani. He has designed the new house and is able to speak with you about the existing house and some of the materials that we have presented. Obviously, real high level. We've given you everything that you generally would ask for, the surveys, the architectural plans for the existing house, as well as the new house, the site photographs, good photographs of the house, exterior and interior, the owner's authorization forms, all the forms that are required. And I think Michael can also just talk to you about some of the additional information that we can also offer and materials to help you guys make your decision as you write your referral to the town board and the building department. So with that being said, I just want to say that this property has not been identified in the Watermill Heritage Area. It's also not part of the AKRF study document. We do not find any landmark designation on it. So we're hopeful that the board will agree that given the information that we're going to present to you, as well as stuff on file that...
Do you have a current photo of the house? I mean, I know Watermill, but when you say 111, I had no idea you would, if I'd known you were on the agenda, I would have even spent 15 minutes looking up something. That would have been helpful to know ahead of time.
We have photos for you right here.
So we're willing to have as much of a discussion as you would like to tonight, but we also recognize that you did not have the opportunity to look at all of this yet.
Is it the brick house that's just back in there?
No, it's a cedar shingle house, painted. Clapboard house, sorry, yeah, it's not shingle.
Yeah, of course.
So, Michael is also on the Zoom. Michael's standing here, but he's also on the Zoom. He can bring up some photos on the Zoom if that would help.
They're in the package.
This is the house?
No. Oh, wait, Michael, that's not the house, is it? No, that's not the house. It's grayish blue.
It looks like the same massing. It looks like an old photo.
It's 2017.
Yeah.
Painted blue.
Oh.
What year was the house built?
I'll let Michael speak to that, but I think we suspect it's sometime around 1910. photos they have here are
Yeah.
the same photos you have.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll let Michael Lamont talk to you a little bit more about the house. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. Michael Lamont from Stella Lamont Rahani Architects. We've been in Bridgehampton for about 30 years, and prior to that, I was actually worked for the National Park Service doing historic building surveys. I like to think of myself as a committed preservationist. We recently helped the owner in Sag Harbor restore a significant structure there. With that said, I think that we dug into, and we thought that one of the benefits of being here tonight was to sort of explain what our findings reflect. And if you look at the key plan, which is the color-coded floor plan, we went through the basement, went through the foundation. We couldn't find any photographs. We think the original house was built in 1910, and in the color-coded plan, we've ascertained that we think that's the yellow. It was basically a center hall colonial farmhouse structure. And I can go through the photographs in a second, but there's a few of the additions didn't show up in the building any building permits, so some of those were done prior to 1957. So, and I'll go through the photographs in a second, but basically the original structure was the yellow. It's been renovated a few times prior to 57, some of the additions. And then what I've highlighted as the pink was an early addition to the house. The greens were, it was substantially renovated in the 80s and 90s. The accessory structures, there's a detached garage, there's a kind of a pool pavilion. Those were done in the 80s, in the late 80s. The garage was done sometime between the 70s and the 80s. And then going to the first, which would be the front of the house, which would be the one that shows the sort of covered porch. So we tried to designate what we, ascertained, as I mentioned, as the original structure, which was the original gabled structure. And we assume, without having any photographs, that there was basically the front door and a small covered porch. The porches were added later. They continued in subsequent additions that we found mostly in the 80s and the 90s. The columns were added when they added those porches. The columns aren't original. The addition on the left side is an earlier addition based on the foundation. It has more of a foundation. The existing structure had probably a dirt foundation, and they came in, it looks like in the 80s, and they put a slab, so there's about 4 feet of headroom or so down in the basement. They put a slab and shored up the foundation there. That area remains as the structural engineers report. It's always wet over there, so there's pumps and dehumidifiers over on that side, and all the mechanical equipment is stuff down there. So going from the front, the dormer over the front door was added as part of the 80s and the 90s addition. And as we go to the back, the eyebrow dormers, why they look like they should be original, they were actually added in the 90s. They converted the attic, which was just an attic space, to a third floor. So they added the dormers on the front with all new framing when we go up in the attic. And then the dormers, 5 of the 7 dormers on the back, particularly all the dormers on the main structure, were added in the 90s. They converted that to what is an illegal third floor, and that actually, when the current owner purchased the house, he was required to tear all that out because it wasn't code compliant. All the windows have been replaced with Marvin windows, we think in the 90s renovation, the 98 renovation. Some of them may have been replaced in the 88 renovation. Going around what's the south side, you'll see the extended porch come around. They added these bump outs for the 2, what I call as the addition. They put an addition, which is a little sort of not quite certain what that was all about, but they put the addition right above the porch there. And then in 99, they added this sort of widow's walk kind of a porch up there when they converted the attic to a third floor space. Going to the rear of the house, I think you get which is the longer elevation. You see how they continued the covered porch. They added those 2 big dormers on the main gable of the structure were added in the 90s. That's when they converted the attic to living space. And they added that bump out, which was a bathroom, in 98 as well. And then the piece that's below the sort of center on the right, I say added prior to 1988. We couldn't, that wasn't original, but there was no record of that anywhere where they added and put this big modern window in that space. And everything, the part of the addition to the right is the early addition, and everything over on the far right, the turret, the dormers, the windows, everything was added in the 98 edition. And that's reflected in the foundations in the basement. It took a little digging around, but we feel like we kind of figured out the sort of history of the overall structure. So, in our assessment that we feel that the house has been so modified over many years, and and just in my opinion, not particularly well done in terms of what was there and what they ended up with. All the spaces don't make a lot of sense. The plan inside doesn't make a lot of sense. And if we hopefully we'll be going forward with a new house, and we would certainly do everything we could do to preserve. There's some interior doors that are older. There's a lot of the doors that are newer. There might be a couple of old mantel pieces in there. They don't look original. They look more from the 50s. There's not really a lot of original items inside, but we would do everything we could do to certainly repurpose what's old in a way. And we go to great lengths when we replace a house. We go to great lengths to make sure that everything gets recycled to LEED standards. So everything will be separated. Everything that can be used in Habitat for Humanity will get used in that direction. Anything that has any historic significance would be offered to people that deal with that. And then any debris that's left would be properly sorted per LEED standards for recycling and repurposing.
Excuse me, Ed, what's the AYB on that?
1910.
1910?
And what's probably the most intact, historically significant part of the property is actually, if you could zoom in a little bit on the driveway, the landscape as you go down the driveway from Rose Hill, we feel is actually the most historically significant part of the existing property. And we've been working with Ed Hollander, the landscape architect, for all of the trees that go down there. It's quite a magnificent driveway and alley of 100-year-old trees there. So we've located the new structure to not disturb any of those trees. And the owner has gone through and hired arborists to look at the trees and make sure they're all healthy and doing whatever he can do to improve their life. So I do think the landscape, the new house will be located roughly where the old house was on the lawn. The lawn would remain pretty much intact. And the other part of the structure that we think has some historical significance, or at least some merit, is the little boathouse that's down at the water. That appears to be original from the structure, or at least sometime around there, because we couldn't find any records on that. So we're retaining the little Adirondack boathouse that's down at the water. And I think that's about it. But we thought we would give you just kind of give you our overview to help your review, and I'm sure you have access to more thorough records of what was there. We really couldn't find anything out about the house, and neither could the attorney that was part of the closing process.
Is the house currently occupied?
It is.
It is. Okay.
By the new owner, just temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
They just basically using it for the summer. We're hoping to start building his new house sometime late fall, if possible.
And what is the kind of window for demolition that is anticipated?
Well, I mean, I think that's how long the process goes and how long to get through the building department, what their backlog is, waiting to go through the process. Brent could probably speak more closely on that process. But I mean, I think our intention would be, we have the house designed, and I'd like to think we have a very good reputation as being capable, quality architects. I'd like to think the house we're designing will someday be in front of a board 100 years from now, and someone will be looking at that and trying to make sure that nobody messes with it. And
I can assure you I won't be.
I won't be around either, but anyway.
Ed, do we have some interior pictures of the house next
We
time?
do. If I could comment, I'm John Whelan from Michael's Home, Stellamont Ronnie Architects, and I just go to it. Yeah, sure.
I can.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say that we subscribe to the Southampton, the portal, so I've gone through every document I could find, and we foiled this, with the archives in Hampton Bays. So I've gone through every document I could find, and what we have emailed to you that's been uploaded, you don't have in front of you. It's a lot of information, but I put everything in there. All the old surveys you can see. Some of them, the dates are hard to read. All of the pieces of plans and the renovations and the property card and the information and the appraisal. And at some point, I thought that's why I crossed in red on the report there. It says crossed out. It says 1910. It said 1950. Somewhere in the town, I saw 1950, and that's what I used. And then I went through the appraisal report, and on the town's appraisal report, I see a 1910, but I never saw any document or anything that said 1910. So that's where that date 1910
That's
does.
it. We've got the historic maps, but I don't have them with me, so
Yeah,
I could help you. I mean, there's Steers, Cochois. I mean, I know the names of I know the names, but I can't tell you exactly which property some of them
Sure.
go to. But if it's not in the survey, it's off the top of my head. I'm not familiar with it because I was there not when the heritage area was done, but when the 2014 one was done.
Right.
But I know, Marlene, some of the ones that aren't visible from the road do get missed, but usually if we have the AYB, so I'm gonna have to dig through my notes because normally I could tell you,
Sure,
but I
that's
can't
fine.
tell you right now unless I
Right.
go home and
And
do
just to
some
find,
research,
then I'll
but-
let Brant speak, just to answer, I also, in the report that you have, I went through the house and I photographed every room in the house. So you have you do in your, email documents. I didn't print out 8 copies of that, but you do
Well,
have a packet.
Typically, we
that
do
has-
is we contact someone and we make a site visit. We schedule some convenient time and
Sure.
whoever on the board is able
Which we
to
can
go.
do,
But
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
after we get an application.
Sure, and Brant suggested that, so we did that, and then we had Steve Lemansky, the engineer, do an engineer's report as well. So I think you'll find when you see all the emailed, you'll find a lot of information there, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, we do appreciate your time tonight. Everything has been uploaded to the portal. I believe that we'll get a notice of complete, so you will have this ready for your final, hopefully, deliberations at the September meeting. We will be here for that. And in the meantime, if there is a site inspection necessary, I think my contact information is on there. I'm happy to work with Michael Lamont and the owner to facilitate getting you there. But as John Whelan has suggested, on your portal, there is a very long list of interior and exterior photos of the house, so you should get a good feel as to what's there. So with that being said, I'm sure you're going to look at your maps, which would be helpful if you come up with anything.
We have them going back to 1838 are dots, but starting in 1870, 1858 on. So
okay,
1873, 1894, 1902, 1960, and then you can. Sometimes because they don't have the lot lines, there's a little bit of it. Oh, Ed's got pulling his up there, huh? Steers, I know, is one name. Cochois is down there. Right, the Rose is, that's where
probably around the J.A. Steers.
I think it's around J.A. Steers.
It's right at that point.
Yeah.
the Rose one is actually Rosemary Lodge. That's the one that got moved.
So we'll figure it out. We'll work on it.
But we'll figure it out. It
Yeah.
just takes, it's sort of, you have to lay it out and figure out which ones are there. and which
One other
ones
thing I
isn't, but
will
yeah.
upload that probably is not in there yet is the documents that Michael Lamont just showed to you tonight, because I think that's very depictive of how piecemeal this house is. So I think that's important for you guys to have on file as well. But again, we do have a demolition permit active with the town. They are seemingly ready to issue based upon my discussion with the building department today. So we are just patiently waiting for your recommendations. And with that being said, we are happy to have dialogues with you between now and the September meeting to help move this forward. And again,
It was a very popular area in the 1890s. They had the Mecox Inn down farther toward the south, and they had yacht races, and I don't know, it was sort of the
This is
very popular place to be.
1902 map. It shows
If you had money. So.
steers as well. So.
And there was a golf course and watermill on the other side, so they had
that's
a lot
interesting.
over in the Cobb Road area. So a lot going.
There is a charming boathouse on the property that will remain. That would be another focal point for the board to look at, is to say, you know, that might date back. We have no idea what the lineage is on that, but the owner does want to preserve that for the time being. And yeah, again, we're here to answer any questions you may have and help to move this along.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks. I think the prior discussion will help frame our work as we go forward when we get the official application from the building department.
Okay. Well, like I said, my understanding is that everything's uploaded on the portal, so I will follow up with your secretary or whoever manages your files to make sure that that is the case. But thank you again.
Okay, and thanks for coming.
Have a great night.
Thank
you. Okay.
These ones down in the water are so tricky because you can't see them. I mean, from the bottom. So that's.
I think we can resume the normal agenda. We have 28 Bittersweet, which was the subject of a visit by Jeff, who also provided some photographs to us, an application for demolition. This was not the demolition in progress, this was the bulkhead repair that was going on.
They're completely replacing the whole bulkhead on Little Peconic Bay.
This is located on, let me just give a map location for this to give a sense of where this is. Okay, so located right on the water, on a dirt road, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Off of off of Noyak Road.
Part of Bittersweet is paved, but not all of it.
Yeah. So your evaluation of it was?
It just seems like it's been neglected for a very long time. There was a lot of rot, and the windows have all been replaced. They're all vinyl, and there is a block foundation that was in decent shape. That's in front of it, but you can see it's all like paint peeling, roof patched. I did look through the windows, and it's not as bad on the inside as it looks on the outside from the part I could see. There's a nice brick chimney in the front, but and some nice 5-panel doors. Other than that,
application interior photos were beautiful. Well,
I said the inside was better than the outside.
yeah, right. I'm just saying they were. You said you looked through the windows, but I just.
Well, the windows were dirty too. So I don't know.
I think they were real estate photos.
This picture is probably 2020, 2017, so 2023, okay. So this is the location, very small.
Small house on a big lot.
Yeah, not a historic neighborhood of any kind.
No, not particularly.
I think I looked up something. Yeah, that it remained, there was an affidavit in the town records saying that, a woman said that her family, Harold Engel, bought the property from, an Elizabeth Scoville in 1925 and built the house in 1927. And it seemed to pass through the Engel family with different last names until at least 1982, 2016, maybe. I think I saw the Engel name. So it appears maybe it was recently sold out of the family.
Because it's hard when I look at this to imagine what I saw today, because they have a construction fence that they all the way around, but it includes all that area that seems like it's a different lot. If I'm reading this, maybe I need new glasses, but back behind the house, yeah, that all is all fenced in as one property.
Hi, not sorry to interrupt. This is Susanna Herman. Can you hear me? I'm on Zoom.
Yes, we can hear you.
Just to clarify, the current owner is a new owner within the last couple of years. They bought this property and the adjacent waterfront property to the south. So it's 28 and 32 bittersweet. He bought both properties with the intention of removing both of those houses and building one house in their place. So I believe what you're seeing when you go there today is the house at 32 has already been removed from the site.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And they're in the process of replacing the bulkhead.
I was going to
The
say,
bulkhead was in pretty bad shape and needed to be replaced. So that is why you probably see a lot of disturbance at the site today. The intention is to merge the two lots, and they can't merge the two lots until this house is removed. As you can see, obviously, the property, the house in question at 28 Bittersweet is located on wetlands. Obviously, the bay to the west, and also to the northeast, there's a pond. And so being on salt water for the last 100 years has led to the house not being in that great shape. I also want to point out that the house is not conforming with respect to FEMA. It's currently in a flood zone and does not conform with base flood elevation. And it's also in the Linois zone, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. That is the limit of moderate wave action. So the existing house is in a location where if we get that 100-year storm, there's actually going to be waves hitting this house. So in this zone, you're required to build on pylons, which this house is not. So that's one further reason that they would like to demolish this house. It's also about 40 feet from wetlands. So as part of the conservation board process, the agreement was that both the houses would be removed and the new house would be built much farther back. I believe that the new house would be 90 feet setback from wetlands, whereas this one is 43 feet. So increasing wetland setbacks and planting a native vegetation buffer between the house and the bulkhead, and also between the house and the pond to the north side.
Okay, thank you for your information. Jeff, from your point,
yeah, the house that appears to have a pool is not there. It's gone.
This house has been removed.
Completely obliterated by the bulkhead construction.
Yeah, they did have a demolition permit issued for that house. That was not an older house. I think it had been added on to in the 80s. It was not historical.
Basically, you had
I had no objection.
recommend no objection to the demolition application.
It is quite close to the
Yeah.
bulkhead.
So,
And yes, there's wetlands right,
no.
very close to it.
Any further discussion of this in terms of proposition? So, okay, we will send our comment back to the building department that we have no objection to the demolition application that you made.
Great, thank you for your time.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
It was very helpful, your information. Thank you.
Yeah, it seemed like you were gonna honor that for a few minutes, so I'm glad I was here to help. And thank you for your time and interest in reviewing all these historical properties. It's appreciated by the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop turning.
Okay, so having proceeded with that, our next is 14 Homewood Drive, Hampton Bays. I visited the site, and it's something of a solvable mystery, I think. This house is located in east of Tiana Bay, and a very populated area. It had on the assessors AYB 1909. If one looks at the house, see if I can bring up a picture of it from.
It almost looked like one of those clubhouses down near West Hampton, Bianchi, where they got moved from a yacht house or clubhouse from one place to another, but just different.
So this is a 2015 picture, which is a little dated, but accurately portrays. Does not look like a 1909 era house to me.
I thought AYB 1902, so that was.
What's that?
1902 was what I looked up the AYB. But
I'm looking at.
What, you did some research on. Okay, good.
I was looking at what was reported by Stephanie. So, but in checking things out,
I see where it is. Yeah.
I looked at the map for 1938. Can't find the house. Can't find any houses in that neighborhood. And
it looks like one of those clubhouses that got moved around. That's exactly.
This would be where it should be located. 1938, it's not there. Unfortunately, there are later aerial photographs, but we don't have access to them. 1947, 1950, and I didn't check historic aerials to try and date it.
Yeah.
But the house is probably less historic in either its origin or it's been remodeled several times. There's been additions
I'm guessing
made to
it was moved there just because it doesn't look like it belongs there due to the age, but it's.
Yeah, it would be
was
interesting
adaptive reuse of something else.
It has a funny driveway and a funny posture to the road. When you look at the house, it's
also a much bigger lot than all the others.
Let's see, so you see it's got a semicircular driveway here, And the house front faces this way, swimming pool and garage in the back. So I didn't see anything of particular historical character to it, in terms of, its origin, as much as I could determine from the aerial map. It didn't match what the AYB is. And your theories, would need to be vastly researched in terms of trying to find out if it in fact was a moved object at some point in time. But I don't have access to any kind of information like that. So with respect to that, I would say, send back a response without any objection to their application for construction on a house, unless there's different thoughts about this. Okay. I did go down, took a picture, but it's buried in my files here someplace. Okay, 53 Long Neck Boulevard, Flanders. Tim, you had spotted some construction activity taking place over a period of time. And
yes, so there was, it's an in-progress renovation and additions. Had they submitted according to protocol, we probably would have passed on the review because the work is relatively minor and does not detract from the character of the neighborhood or of the structure itself. Just to put it on record that they were doing the activity, and a stop work order was issued. We did a formal review.
Right. This is kind of east of Flanders Road, I guess.
Correct.
Positioned here off of Flanders Road going to Riverhead. So
this was.
You had a report you sent along. Let me see if I can just get that.
Yeah, it's a circa 1940 bungalow that was reportedly moved to its site in the 40s, which would make sense because the subdivision for this area was conducted beginning in the 1940s. It's relatively modest bungalow style. The proposed additions were in keeping with this. A shed roof addition in the back was altered to add the cross gable. There's a small addition behind the gray slat fence that's currently kind of obscured by tarp, which is just filling in a little bit of the footprint but won't really change the view of the house. A Google Street View showing the previous shed roof addition on the back. And then as you scroll down, you'll see that they continued the gable. So the massing is sympathetic to the original house. It just would have been nice to have the benefit of a review and for them to follow the proper procedures.
You describe the additions are presently as minor in character, essentially.
It's a small cottage. The additions are sympathetic and not offensive. It's just they really should have had the benefit of the proper review process. The front door is a little bit of a Home Depot special with oval and leaded glass. The proposed elevations that they provided had a door that's more in keeping. Actually, the shed door is nicer than the front door, in my opinion. The proposed elevation showed a more cottage-style door, and you can see in the photo on the right, that's the rear door. So I'm requesting that, if possible, they match the front door to the style of that. And that the shed in the back would be nice if it received some love and attention.
Looks like some of the
original
windows with
some of
the
replacement windows. It just is a shame that it was replaced with the 1/1 because it does change the character of the house. And when the house is so small and simple in massing, you do lose something when you take away some of that articulation on the facade. Oh well.
Okay. So you're recommending non-objection to doing the proposed renovations. Any problems with that with board members? No. So would you do the response to the planning department? Thank you. That would be helpful. Okay. We can just, we have a referral from the planning board for 2252 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton. Is that what that picture is?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you step up and
This is for the corner of Montauk Highway and Butter Lane in Bridgehampton. If you're familiar with where Loaves and Fishes is just a little bit further east from the corner, also where Bridgehampton Inn, that particular parcel there. So this is right next door on the corner. And it's a vacant lot at the moment, and the proposal is to actually build a new, two new retail buildings. This is one right here, and this is the other. All to try and kind of keep with the Greek revival vernacular that's already happening a little bit further east. So to carry that through, with the gables, with the large frieze boards coming around. Actually, before I get to the residence, this is coming down Butter Lane. So that's, you saw that building there, which is you saw right on the corner. And then there's a residence that also be built in the back. So there's a total of 3 buildings being put onto the parcel. Actually, this probably shows what the streetscape would look like.
Years ago, originally there was going to be a cooking school. Is that still the intention?
No.
So this is just commercial use?
It's the front corner will be commercial use and the back will be residential.
And this falls within the landmark district?
Pardon?
This falls within the landmark district?
It's in the historic district,
It's in the
yes.
historic district. Can we see the other picture?
This is the location, if you're, of the proposed offices and residential area. As you can see, it is the corner lot that basically is wooded in character presently.
This is the residence.
So how are you feeling, Ed, about Bridgehampton
Well, first of all, this is a referral from the
planning,
just to
right?
get some reaction. We ultimately will get an application for a certificate of appropriateness for the historic district that, is
Yes.
a separate procedure for us. So, with respect to, what I've seen, it's 2 office buildings instead of 1. They probably an advantage to this proposal is that there's no exit and entry onto Montauk Highway, but it is onto Butter Lane, which is slightly less traffic than Montauk Highway. The scale of it seems reasonable in terms of the characteristics of the neighboring corner and also the adjoining historic structures associated with Bridgehampton Inn. That's a very classic old house on Bridgehampton's Main Street, converted to the inn. The residence is, you know, a little large with respect to the other buildings that'll be there on the corner, but not out of character with some of the residences further down Butter Lane. I don't have strong feelings about it one way or the other. I think in terms of what we have ultimately, you know, be asked, does it fit architecturally into the character of the historic district? Is it scale appropriate to what you find in the neighboring buildings that and neighboring structures in the area? Are the materials appropriate for the construction? I think, you know, they are, from what is being what I've seen proposed. So I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other about it, but I think it is appropriate for the character of the historic district as it exists today.
Can I ask, are you going to connect the car parks? I know because Bridgehampton Inn's car park is just behind there.
So sorry.
And that has an entrance onto Montauk Highway.
The front.
Look how far
Yeah,
it sticks out.
No, this is the one that, wait, this one.
Basically.
Yeah.
So Ed, there is a entrance onto Montauk Highway through the car parks.
So to answer your question, yes, the current drive-in next to Loaves and Fishes, that will remain. And then this parking in here is now all shared with both. It'll be shared between what's going on here and what is going on the proposed site.
So that access.
And that access is only in
No, I
with the traffic going out onto Montauk Highway.
No, that's not the Montauk Highway.
It's just a tiny little alleyway.
Correct, but we also, the town would not want to see traffic going out onto.
That's the new house that's on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Port Cochere seems like it's for a hotel in the house, but
Eventually something is going to be built there. This is no question. Seems quite a large house, doesn't it?
So is it a
Six bedrooms?
Single family building.
Oh.
how many square feet?
What?
How many square feet?
It's roughly about 8,000.
To me, in terms of site planning, the fact that it's
Yeah,
a
all
single
the
family
big family.
residence with proximity to the parking lot and the circulation for the parking lot, it just seems more in character like a multifamily
Yeah.
property, which I would almost prefer that it was multifamily. It would be a little bit more in character.
Well, this area is
Workforce housing or
zoned-
something.
This area is zoned Hamlet office. And one of the requirements of Hamlet office is that for a certain amount of office space, you have a certain number of residential opportunities that would be programmed into it.
Right.
I don't know, how much is the combined office space, square footage, do you know?
It's just short of 6,000. The one building is about 3,000, the other one is about 290 something.
So.
2,900, sorry.
Right. I know that, I believe it's over 5,000 square feet of office. You have to provide a certain number of residential options. I forget the ratio of square footage to the number of residential options that are there, but
But with it facing the parking lot, it appears to be commercial almost, the residence. To
I
me,
guess there's somebody who will buy it.
It's, to me, it would be a little unusual to have a house that close to parking lots, but basically when ultimately we get to talk about the certificate of appropriateness, it's really not the question of the mixing of uses,
right, well,
but
it's,
right at scale
there's
and,
no green
yeah.
belt there between to
Yeah.
differentiate from.
This corner did have, I believe, a previous proposal for some senior housing.
I believe there was going to be a restaurant of some sort originally, and there was going to be also a residence there.
Hmm?
The trouble that they ran into was that they couldn't get the health department approval for the sanitary.
To put another restaurant sanitation system in there.
Right, so they had to, so the project had to be scaled back
Right.
to accommodate.
It's across from a bus car park. It's across from a school bus car park, isn't it?
There's a school bus
house.
garage across
Yeah.
the,
I mean, it's
across
a
the
big-
street, yes.
It's a big house for that position. I mean, it's not so much the office space. It's the house. Are they allowed to have a house that's that big? With that little
that big.
green around it?
It'd be more probably screened, like, there's houses right next door, a little bit further north on Butter Lane.
Yeah, we've,
And then,
two of them have come up in front of us on Butter Lane.
and,
One across the street.
and there's a flag lot that also goes behind the inn. So there's a number of residences right there along that way.
If you-
Nothing as big as,
Yeah,
there's
I
no.
think they're close.
You
not
can see
sure.
the outline of,
Yeah.
Is that a single-family residence or multifamily?
Single
This is the
family.
train station. So are we going to get a application in front of us for this, or, oh, this is a referral?
This is a referral.
So,
2, 4, 4.
I mean, the house is bigger than the office. How many bedrooms are in the house?
6.
How many bedrooms are in the Bridgehampton Inn?
I don't know.
This is all Sibyl's, so,
Bridgehampton Inn is smaller than the house. What's the
Yes.
footprint?
that's what I'm saying. The house is bigger than the two office buildings and twice as big as the inn and the restaurant that sits there now. So if we're supposed to be looking at the appropriateness of size,
I don't think that the house is bigger than the inn.
it might be bigger
You
than the
look at it.
footprint of it.
In the footprint, it's pretty obvious
It
it
shows,
is.
it shows that it is.
It's the inn. Here's the house.
Not the inn and the shop, but just the inn. Well,
What is the purpose of the,
I think the house-
circular driveway and
I can't hear you.
Bridgehampton Inn is beautiful. And I'm sure the office spaces will be done sympathetically. As you say, they're the right materials, the scale seems right. But the house seems quite large. So if we're talking about the appropriateness, I would have a question about the house.
Well, let's look at
On
the.
two sides, it's on a parking lot.
Hmm?
On the side and the front.
Yeah,
Yes.
a lot of parking.
They're right on the parking lot.
And it has considerable amount of landscape area behind it and on the Butter Lane side.
So you have
I
2.5
consider-
stories of the house as proposed.
I guess just typically, in
And
years ago, houses faced south, now they face the road, a road, versus an interior.
and you
Chicken,
have-
because the traffic sees, they'll see the side of the house versus.
I think if you recall, the inn itself is 2 stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it basically is sitting next to, will be sitting next to the single-story office building. The house behind the offices, so to speak, looking from Montauk Highway, it probably from pedestrian and vehicle view is not something you would notice given the angle of vision with respect to having the offices kind of up to the sidewalk and the recess of the house from Montauk Highway.
I mean, it's quite, Loaves and Fishes, the shop is single story in between the inn and the resident and the
No, it's
commercial.
two-story.
Is it 2-story? Beg your pardon. Well,
The front part is just a single story.
Right. In the same way that
Dash
this section right here is a single story with a roof, and then this is stepped back.
Okay.
So the scale of this would be similar to the scale of Loaves and Fishes.
I think that's nice.
And are there second floors?
No.
In those spaces?
Because you'd have to put in residential then.
It's not a matter of what you'd have to, you just can't.
Yeah, parking and sanitary flow. I would imagine.
And that's Montauk Highway that we're looking at.
Correct.
Can we see the other pictures?
Sure. And this is.
Brings the commercial entrances around onto Butter Lane then. There's no entrance
Yes, the
in that
entrance,
corner.
this entrance for this.
Yeah,
sorry,
it's a little weird.
Is between, it's between here and what is, it's around here. So the entrance is
Yeah.
between the inn.
So the entrance between the inn and the property though is just that single alleyway.
Correct.
That's
Well,
only
right
the
now they use
entrance in.
they use it as there's
Both ways.
They use it as both ways.
But you're going to make it one way.
We want to make it one way.
And so all the trucks for everything they'll have to come in from Butter Lane. They can't, do they get down that alleyway?
Oh yeah, it's 24 feet wide at the moment.
Well, that's an interesting use of the space, I'll tell you. It gets a lot of parking in there. I don't think it looks bad. From what you're showing us, the detailing's nice and looks like it would fit into the community.
Trying to
And
keep
you're looking at these buildings from an angle, even this large house. As you're driving down Butter Lane, you'd be looking at corner of it, one end over here. To me, it wouldn't read that large when you drove by it.
I agree. It's going to be.
Huh?
That's how are the trucks getting in? Right past this house.
That's their problem.
Whoever buys the house.
Well, we own
No,
it, but
apparently
being built for somebody.
they're gonna live in it. Sybil, and I'm sorry, I don't remember her husband's name.
Garrett.
Garrett are gonna live in
so
it.
it's for
They
them.
own,
Oh, okay.
I mean,
All right, so
but
it
you're right,
already has a
eventually.
built-in.
somebody's-
Yes, it's like a tree that's blocking an ugly part of a house. It could die.
Yes, exactly. Landscaping's nothing we count on. Well, as you say, it's up to them. It seems a big semicircular, this circular drive thing.
You know, it just almost looks like it's being set up to be commercial.
Thank you. That's exactly what I thought. That's why I was
Like,
asking about the
they'll
rooms.
live in it for a year and then they'll
Yes.
turn it into an inn or
And
something.
then they'll,
Well, it
which,
looked like it worked.
Which I would have no problem with. 'cause
Yeah,
it would
and it's
be
sitting
more
in the park.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Now they have enough parking.
Well, yeah, that's the question. Well,
Yeah.
there's a fair amount of parking back there in the back. But how much is, we don't know how much parking this inn's taking up, but all this parking's existing, isn't it?
yeah.
No, you see where that one is?
Oh, that's
That's
new.
all
That's
added.
new.
That's all added too.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty substantial.
This is the old,
Mm-hmm.
that's the property.
Yeah, I've driven down this before, but I don't remember that.
Thank you. That's exactly
It
what I was
actually helps
thinking.
'cause every time I go to the Bridgehampton Inn, I could never find the entrance to the parking lot. And I end up parking on Montauk Highway because
It is a rather claustrophobic parcel. This, the Bridgehampton Inn and Loaves and Fishes parking lot currently, so they're kind of merging the parking arrangement.
They're building a lot more parking. Is there a
Yes, well,
set
you have
number
all-
of parking
you
spaces
have
for
office
commercial?
space.
That's what I'm saying. Will they tell you that you have to have X
Yes.
number of
Yes.
parking
Yes.
spaces?
That's correct, yes.
Yes.
Based
It
on
is a
square
formula.
footage.
So it's this is the code that it needs to be.
Correct.
Occupants.
Well,
Well, but if you can't get it, then there's like a purchase, you can sometimes buy spots, so to speak.
yeah. I
pay,
mean,
pay in lieu of
So
parking.
I think the question probably at this stage is there any kind of critical issue that, really would be a red flag that might present a problem when it comes back for a certificate of appropriateness? I mean, it would take more time to just reflect on everything, but at this stage, is there something that stands out would be obviously wrong with it?
is the house only 28 feet from Butter Lane? Am I reading that right?
I believe it is 20, yes.
So I don't know if a house has to be set back further than 28 feet that you're building new.
No, I don't think that's.
No, it's within, it's all within.
It looks like 26 on the survey.
The building department will tell them. Seems so close.
And we plan
I'd be able to be done with it. And it's not, I don't object to the fact that
We're looking at it aesthetically. These people make nice things.
So as we look at it, is it wood shingle siding?
Yes, everything be wood shingle siding, and like I said, all of the detailing of the building would be with, a heavier frieze board and moldings that are all appropriate
Mm.
to give you an older style
Mhm.
look of a building.
And then on the house, what is the roofing on that?
The same, this would all be wood shingles in here and with the white trim on the building as well.
And then the
It's a
roofing?
metal roof though over that.
There is a small little metal roof there, and then the rest of it would be the asphalt
That
roof that we
port
have.
cochere that sticks out.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So is that meant to be Butter Lane?
Correct.
I can see those light poles. It just seems to have the front of the house facing that direction.
So it's asphalt roof shingles?
Yes.
Because your drawings say wood.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. It says wood shingles.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting use of the site. It'll be fun to see the drawings as they develop and,
Is that landscaping right, though? Because that isn't, it's not as big a view as that.
Correct. That is
Okay,
correct.
because what
That's
you're
like
gonna really
taking away
see
Butter
is a
Lane
bus
corner.
car park.
Yeah, no, there'll be,
None of that is that.
correct, there'll be more trees and there'll be more other
There's
shrubs.
a landscape
hedges.
plan that had been
Yeah, there'll be
prepared
hedges,
and-
correct. Yeah, this is just for the, from the rendering
Yeah,
company
yeah.
as we put this together.
Yeah, 'cause that's- none of that exists.
Correct.
And the building of Butter Lane Corner would kind of impede part of that. Would be in the foreground. You know, right where you have those rushes in the front.
You know?
Oh,
Butter
that's-
Lane Corner building, isn't
Yeah.
it? So that's kind of a,
This is the other side of the street.
That's
I
right.
understand. I worked at Butter Lane Corner though, and so I know that it's not that far away from the corner.
That's what
Oh,
I'm saying.
well,
None of
yeah.
that
What I'm saying is
real.
the building would impede the view, or block the
Correct.
view.
Correct. You're saying the building that's here.
The building,
Yes.
Butter
Yes.
Lane
Butter Lane
Corner.
Corner.
Yeah, that was kind of cut out. For the
Yeah,
purpose of-
right. I
Yes,
get
I
it. For
apologize.
clarity.
Clarity, yes.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this going, that's never going to look like that.
No. Yeah,
Because
it'll
you'll
be
see this
more,
building in front of it.
it's blocked.
Yeah.
Correct.
And hedges, according to
There'll
the
be
drawing.
hedges, yes. According to-
Okay,
I mean, in that view, the house doesn't look that long.
it does look part of the complex, though. It does. I don't. It doesn't look like it's not going to be something else, does it? From that drawing, it looks part of the complex, the whole thing.
Right, yeah, no, it'll be much more separated out, very much the way the neighbors are separated from,
Yeah, I live around the corner there.
the way that they're kind of hedged out and the neighbors are kind of.
Yes, I guess.
Did anybody have any reaction to the facades of the proposed office buildings that would face the street?
The only comment I have is that you said Greek revival, but those gable pitches don't look Greek revival to me at all. Especially the one on the right.
That one there? We're actually
They're much flatter, Greek revival.
a little bit flatter, yes, although there are some examples that do show a slightly steeper gable.
Okay.
And we're just like I said, we're just trying to carry the architrave.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the look of it, but I think it's a little disingenuous to say Greek revival.
Okay.
Sort of seems strange having people walking past the building and there's no door to go in there.
Yeah, that bothers me a lot.
I don't know. I mean, that's
Well, there is a door
There's a pergola.
They're
here.
all on the
not on
side.
that side.
This is facing south. This office building has a door
The one in the
here.
corner.
These door, yeah, those doors are on Butter Lane.
So Butter Lane is now becoming part of the
The turn,
main drag.
or the turn.
Well, it's a commercial. You know, I mean, you've got the bus place and the office building on the corner. So I guess it's,
So it almost looks like there's a link, like a pergola or something between the two buildings?
There was a proposed pergola, although it wouldn't touch the way it shows there. It would just be in the alleyway.
So it might not be there at all.
Correct.
Anything
Just
else?
two freestanding buildings then,
Yes. Correct.
because the drawings talk about a pergola here.
And this is a good time to comment on the architecture, because the planning board can control that a little bit.
Anybody have any comments on the facades?
That's in between, I think. So that's the right elevation east.
Is this just a porch over here? I don't see it in the rendering, but there looks like this. What is that? Because the building in the plan is straight across.
You know what, you don't see it because it's straight.
So what's the purpose
No,
of the purple?
this is actually, there is a break, it's
Show
just
you how to get
slightly back.
Mhm.
It's not straight.
Yeah. Straight across?
No, it's,
Because it's on an angle.
Straight across?
it's not, yeah, it's actually, the building kind of comes,
Out?
it does.
No, I can just
See that?
It was like
And
about a foot.
about, yeah, there's a break in the wall.
The
It's just
street
the tree
comes
that's
out and
blocking
it
it.
follows the
Right, there's
street.
another, you don't see it, so the
Yeah.
comes down here and there's a break in the wall.
That building doesn't look good for a while.
It seems like it reads a little heavy visually, the building on the corner with the projecting, one story, yeah, that part. And you're looking at it, it looks like pilasters, but then there's a blank spot before you get to the glass, this area right in here.
That's the pilot, yeah, that'll be just a pilot after, like, just like you see here.
There's a pilaster, then it sets back to a painted surface. It makes it look sort of heavy, but I like the little clear story windows up there. That's kind of fun.
That looks good for a while.
I mean, it looks and doesn't look unlike a development where that house might have been an old house that had a projecting commercial
Yeah.
first levels put on it as
like
a
loaves and fishes.
It looks like loaves and fishes.
The main streetscape seems to be in character in terms of material, the massing, and the general situation. I think the biggest concern is that the proposed residence almost to me looks like someone had taken an office building and the request was to make it look a little more residential. And just the way with the site planning, which is a necessity of the parking requirements and other things, it's kind of how it reads, especially with strong access through the two office buildings to the front door. It just seems like it's much more part of the complex and much more in character with a more commercial building than a residential building. And I think that's one of the things we're all reacting to.
Right, and in the end, that building will be screened with shrubbery and some hedging that'll probably go around the residence.
I guess it's just that the site planning
So it's
set
just-
drawings don't really show that, and it doesn't appear that there would be enough room for that screening other than like a 18-inch deep privet. When you
And
take
then
the
that-
turning radius for the port
What's the
cochere,
purpose of that walkway? Because you're only walking between two blank walls.
Right, you mean that alleyway where,
That
you're talking
alleyway.
to where the pergola
Yeah, the
would have
pergola.
been, which is lined up the access directly with
But,
this
but there's
front
not
door
a
to
window
the,
to be
to the
found
so-called
on
house.
this.
The house almost looks like maybe it's supposed to have been an addition to the inn or something. I mean, it looks like it doesn't look like a residence from the
It
site
just
plan.
doesn't
It
seem
does-
like it
I
would
don't
be
know
very
why-
nice to
why
go
do we
down
need-
there. It seems like a
also-
place for kids to hang out and smoke.
little devils.
What was the need question for the semicircular little driveway here in front of the house? It's really just going into a commercial parking lot, right?
It was just that they had, I guess they could park in front of the house, get out of the parking lot. You know, that's-
If they didn't have that, they could have a little bit more greenery. I personally just think that the setbacks are too narrow. And the footprint is large.
It seems like the main building of the complex, the house. Like the things in the front are the scale of the shops on Main Street, but that big building in the back seems like that's the focus, with especially with that walkway heading towards it. You know, or the pergola way, whatever you want to call it.
So Ed, is
Yeah.
there something we should say?
Well, we have a number of kind of
Seems like the house should be oriented to the
multiple
road, not to the
Yeah.
back of the building.
perspectives
But
on
then you don't get the parking.
different aspects of the structure, and you know, I'm trying to think of if there is some kind of summary or general statement that can be made about it. There's a lot of kind of expectations that it could be different, but not an articulation of how it should be different in some fashion. That's
I mean, I personally wonder why the buildings are pulled apart to create like a runway right to their front door of this house. And that runway is blank. Like, couldn't the shops have a window onto that side or something?
Sure. I think that is a valid criticism and comment, that
I mean, if you're gonna-
it does, it provides kind of a channel.
Right to their front door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, of course, is you will have cars parked in front of the front door in that semicircle kind of thing. But
When people get lost, they're gonna U-turn there, so.
Or if there's no parking.
If you didn't have the semicircle, you'd have an opportunity to put much more greenery, just to, you know,
Yeah.
to separate the house, this massive house. The house looks massive vis-à-vis the scale of the retail and office.
Right.
And I think that's that discordance is what's bothering everyone.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have an entrance for retail on Butter Lane instead of on the main street, which is inconsistent with the rest of the district. So I think it's a little bit of an issue.
Well, I think the Butter Lane access is probably justified in terms of the safety and
Sure.
issues of risk that are involved in this neighborhood. But you know, it's a little tough visualizing it in terms of its impact, certainly, and the fact that it's multiple buildings at once we're trying to grapple with also presents a bit of a conundrum.
So this building here could have the potential of having 2 retail spaces in it. And that's the reason why we have 2 doors.
Mhm.
This one also has the potential for 2 retail, but you can't enter here for both. So that was the reason why this building has the doors on Butter Lane, so that you come around the corner and your entrance would be here and here into the 2 spaces.
Right.
Coming around.
Sometimes the retail stores could have multiple entrances, so there would be no reason that you couldn't put a door onto Main Street for that one retail tenant, and they have the benefit of having 2 exposures.
Like the 2 buildings. There's no, you know, if they were gonna make.
Are the parking spaces against the residents going to be land banked, or are those going to be constructed day
Those
one?
would be constructed. We originally had parking that was on the northern part, but the neighbors had objected, and so the parking had to get moved.
Yeah, I guess it just seems incongruous to the single family use to have the side of the residence so close to the parking spaces. It seems like it would be very difficult to get enough screening to have that be comfortable for someone, and that's kind of the place where I'm reacting from on that.
Right. Unfortunately, like I said, originally we had them all towards
Mhm.
the northern part of the property, and
There's 60.
they objected to that. They wanted much more space.
Mhm.
So the parking had to get moved somewhere, and unfortunately, the owner has to.
Yeah. I know why they'd want to live on a car park. Yeah, you probably got 6 feet between the car park and the house.
I don't know if it's that much.
Maybe not
mean,
even that much.
The more orthodox proposal would basically to have one building for the offices and retail uses that are kind of programmed there, instead of having them separated and then close to the parcel line there.
Other than access from Main Street for pedestrians to their parking lot, that pergola area doesn't serve any purpose.
The thought is, not knowing what's going to go in there, whether or not somebody would put some tables in there or something like that. Would you have, like for outdoor seating? We just don't know who the tenants would be at the moment.
It would be shady and not very.
Well,
It's only a couple
I
of
don't
feet.
think it would be that shady, no more than there's a corridor between the inn and Loaves and Fishes now. There's a roof
Oh, yeah,
there.
they made it nice.
And they made it look quite nice. And it's not a lot of windows in those areas either that face, especially Loaves and Fishes, which faces the part that faces east.
That side, but the Bridgehampton inside is all windows.
Yes.
Has windows, yes.
I ate in that
Yeah,
space
yeah.
last year with my
Right.
family.
It's just this walkway with
Yeah, that's what
absolutely
I mean,
dead
like, just-
space, nothing in it either way.
What is its purpose? Just like in the Watermill Square development, that's where the shops open into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can we,
And it's only 12 feet.
It's 15.
Okay, I guess
Keep in mind
I
that
need
your
new dresses.
context here is the historic district. You seem to be getting into a lot of just design. What is the impact on the historic district?
but if we could make architectural comments,
You can make, because the planning board has some control over the appearance of the buildings.
so that's
You need to
what,
also refer back to your design guidelines that were prepared for the historic district. How do these buildings complement those design standards? It might be premature tonight to make a decision on this referral. You will get a second grab at the apple when the building permits are applied for and those actual construction plans. But if you do have some preliminary comments on the designs, now's the time to send them to the planning board, because they may have some ability to implement some of those.
well, I think we don't like this dead walkway. I mean, that's a design thing as well. That's nice.
You're saying it doesn't add anything to the character of the
It doesn't add
of the
anything.
district.
You'd
And,
have some kind of light. I
But
mean, if it were
It's only
old,
if
you'd
a
have some
restaurant
kind of
goes
light
in there,
on
then
some wall
put tables out
somewhere.
there.
You
Who
wouldn't
else is
have
going out there?
Who's
two
gonna
dead
sit there
walls
and
like
talk?
that.
Right.
So it should, we can make a comment that the alley between the buildings should have some sort of pedestrian activation rather.
Yeah, some reason to go there.
I would not want to make a comment and have the two buildings be jammed together into a larger
Tie
building.
those comments to some historical
Yep. Okay.
perspective.
Yep.
Like I say,
Why
there
is
is,
that historically significant to have that?
Well, the question could be phrased in different ways. Is it out of character with?
Correct. Is it out of character
So-
or is it in character?
Yeah, the
Well,
Mm-hmm.
way of
you know
looking at it.
Bridgehampton better than I do, but I can't think of, except for the Loaves and Fishes area, where something like that occurs, and at least that goes back to another part of the building.
and there's some side windows
Yeah.
there. There is one further down. I mean, there's a few corner shops that have an alley, but there's side windows, even on the commercial space. It wraps around the corner.
Yeah, pedestrian activation.
So it will be the neighbor to this project. This is new, by the way. This building is about 2010 or so. Loaves and Fisher's Cook Shop building. That's new. This is the old building. Next door. That is the classic building, so. Is there anything that should be echoed from?
I've already said it. I'm not gonna get accused of beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
Look at the Bridgehampton Inn. That's great for vinyl.
Yeah.
And especially if there's nothing up there, it just
It's Greek revival,
like-
typically front facing, isn't it?
typically, but there are other types.
We do have, you know, if you go along Main Street, there are, you know, you can see an office building on the corner opposite to what's being projected. It certainly is a more orthodox appearance of the building facing Main Street, certainly.
Well, that one's got a big parking lot in front of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has a parking lot that
Yeah, all the way across.
is suitable for it, but
It's funny, I never noticed that vacant lot on the corner all the times I drive by there.
So
we might call it a historic landscape.
are you doing the metal roofs? Are you doing metal roof or on the house?
I mean, on the porch shed, yes, that's what was being proposed at the moment.
So that's not in keeping, is it? It is on a barn, but not normally. I don't know if we have metal roofs in the historical district.
Well, originally, I mean, front porches and stuff would have been a metal roof because asphalt shingle roofs didn't exist and they were too flat to put a wood roof on.
So let's collect our commentary here. So one, we're not positive about the current separation of the buildings, two office buildings, the way that appears. Is that one of?
Pedestrian activation, I think was the expression.
Pedestrian-
Pedestrian activation to the two dead walls of the walkway.
Okay.
The lack of windows or anything.
I guess the porte cochere kind of shields you a little bit from like a
Any
enfilade
Yeah,
shoot
yeah.
down the hallway right through their front door glass.
They're long, they got a lot of cars.
I think the materials and the scale of the Main Street streetscape would be in keeping
Yes.
as proposed.
Scale
appropriate.
appears acceptable.
Yes, materiality is acceptable.
The asphalt shingles for roofing is,
Um,
And it's metal on the
Doesn't
house.
that,
okay, so
doesn't
is
the Loaves
it,
and Fishes building have asphalt on the roof?
Does.
any stylization for the buildings themselves, the facades, or?
I mean, I think saying that it should be in keeping with the Bridgehampton, the detailing and materials of the Loaves and Fishes Cook Shop and the Bridgehampton Inn. If we have to be that specific.
Consistent
More
with,
specific.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I think you should be more specific.
Okay, so cedar shingles with exposures to.
These comments
okay.
going to the planning board,
Yep.
they're not gonna know how to
Okay.
interpret
Okay,
generalized
understood.
comments.
Yep, okay.
And that's the intent, to
Yep.
carry through the.
Yep.
So when do you want to make them more Greek revival, is that? Or?
Well,
the
Main
details-
Street itself is not Greek revival.
No, but we're matching their house, the Bridgehampton Inn, so I'm just asking. It's not my language, so.
I mean, yeah, there's plenty of buildings that aren't Greek revival on Main Street.
So scale is appropriate, the general materials associated with cedar,
Yeah,
cedar shingle siding.
Cedar shingle siding.
And
white painted trim.
white painted trim is something also appealing. Do you want to draw attention to the criticism made about parking spaces adjoining a residential house?
Be less than 6 feet from the.
Is that something that
Yes.
seems appropriate to call attention to?
It seems odd that a house that big is sitting in a parking lot.
Any other thoughts that
So.
you recollect from our
Is it
discourse?
odd that the house, sort of the front of the house, is facing the back of the commercial spaces instead of the street? It definitely looks like sort of the back of the house is facing the street, sort of very closed off. It's probably a pretty busy road, but as you head down the streets, most of the houses probably have their front doors and things facing the road.
Exactly.
Was there a reason that it faces the back of the commercial buildings? Or just...
It was not originally intended that way. It was just that having the front door and having the rear yard to the back of what was left for space is kind of, the front door became opposite of the rear as opposed to walking going to the side.
This way. And to get the house in and have a backyard.
Right.
If they faced it the other way, their backyard would be the parking lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, only the front door and backyard have to be
No,
directly up.
no, exactly.
They don't-
You could have the house facing, the front door facing Butter Lane and still have the yard on the side.
But
Exactly.
at 6 feet,
But
you can't
you
have
know-
an off-street park, a place to pull your car in.
Well, it'd be sort of
Because
tough
they
to have
haven't
that
got a
porta
driveway.
share if they wanted to have it face on the street side would be sort of tough.
Could, yeah.
And you
I don't
couldn't,
think you could
you'd have to park your car on the road. God
Or
forbid.
take up some of those space with the driveway.
But it could have, well, I'm not sure with the setback and whatnot, if it had a little porch on that side with a side door that just gave it the appearance of a prior entrance or something, but at this point, you're probably up against your setback, so.
I don't know, I don't have a big problem with the massing of these three structures. And it seems to me like they, at least are looking at these drawings, I mean, those illustrations there, they had a reasonable continuation of Loaves and Fishes next door. One of those that was showing Loaves and Fishes, the front looks very much like these. And it seemed pretty interesting to me, and the fact that you go around the corner and these things are at different angles of buildings. I find it vaguely refreshing compared to having taken up a whole bunch of this site with building, big massive buildings. And this is massive, all right, but it's set way back and looks to me like it'd be landscaped off to where you might hardly see that structure at all. I'm amazed you got all that parking in there. That's a piece of work. And besides that, it's it's really sort of insulated from, those parking lots are insulated from being seen. I assume they would be with the plantings and the trees and shrubbery.
And just the structures.
There was a landscape plan on the plans that were submitted with the application. I don't know, do you have it? Okay, you do have it.
Sorry, beg your pardon.
So we have any other concerns that we want to express to the planning board that may guide them in their consideration? So, if not, that will do it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks. I like your easel.
Thanks.
Looks like sort of like one of those hurricanes they advertise. Oh, folds up.
I thought it was an erector set when you pulled it out.
Yeah.
We did have on the agenda another referral, 819 Lumber Lane. But the planning board, I believe, has some changes in mind or something, but they asked that we not consider it at this meeting at this time. It was
They rescinded the referral because the code doesn't stipulate that they have to send pre-submission conferences.
Oh, well, okay,
So when it becomes a formal site plan application,
that's when it
then
will.
they would send it.
Okay, all right, that was not, you all know that we have new support and land management with Nicole.
I
as
actually
our
met her
new
when I was in the building.
aide, and in any case, that when she communicated, she didn't pick up and communicate that. It was not something that I
Well,
understood the
they
reason.
didn't communicate that to her. They simply said it was rescinded. And then when I talked to the planners, they said, well, we shouldn't have sent it to begin with because it wasn't a site plan.
Well, in any case, it's, but it raised a question. I don't really want to, because of the late hour, don't want to really spend any time except to raise a question going back to the master plan for town of Southampton. The vision for historic resources section of the master plan. Number one, devise strategies to maintain the historic character of the town's hamlet and rural areas with an increased emphasis on protecting historic landscapes and settings as well as individual structures. There was some suggestion at the time of things like having designated areas of scenic routes that would be open to designation after review. None of that was carried forward with respect to certainly the capacity of the Landmarks Board from that time. So, but it's something I think we should consider too, to perhaps resurrect and propose tweaking the code perhaps to try to make that a clearer process for the town to protect its rural landscape where it has particular value for the communities. And so, you know, unless there's some immediate reaction, I would just kind of leave it at that for the moment. We can discuss it a bit more and exchange some ideas. I've done no research about it myself, so it's kind of just an open question for me at the moment anyway.
Well, we obviously want to protect as much, we obviously take it from, particularly, not particularly in Bridgehampton. I think we're all subject to this huge amount of development. And this piece of property, which 32 acres, the The woman says she wants to build a stable, but she only has one horse, and she's building 50 stables because her dad's a developer. I mean, there's a whole
Well, I don't think
story
we
to
have to discuss it.
But we don't have to
Yeah.
discuss this. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is it's important that we look into what the value of the open space we have is. 'Cause
Right.
it's come in front of us twice in the past year and a half that we're allowing space for a park. But we live in farmland. I find it slightly depressing that people are telling us that they're allowing space for a park. I understand their intention is to secure some open space, but I think we should be slightly more. I think we definitely should have some input over the what's being left in the town.
Excuse me, could you just clarify what you're referring to?
Basically, open space or not.
Okay.
Whether
but
people should develop.
Where's 32 acres? Where's a park?
I beg your pardon. This was a referral, which we can't, which they've taken back, 819 Lumber Lane.
Okay,
It's at the,
all right.
no, I beg your pardon, it's at the corner of Scuttle Hole Road and Lumber Lane.
Okay.
Which Ed and I both live basically virtually on the, so we know it well. It's about, they're building 5 houses across the street. And I think all through the Hamptons this is happening. So it's not just us, and the whole story comes in. Once this property's gone, it's like old houses. Once they're gone, they're gone. You can't bring them back. So I think we should. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. This has been, everybody's been writing in, and so I'm mid-emotion on this. So yes, if we could, in general, have some input over open space, that would be great.
Oh, okay. Anyway, we'll probably be visiting this issue someplace down the road when it comes officially before the planning board as a formal application. But, so 126 South Country Road was designated a landmark. That's done. We haven't heard anything about the negotiations for the Southampton windmill possible designation. 520 Montauk Highway is I think basically at the moment, I don't know if there's any progress at all. There's no progress, so David kind of is fielding the issues and communications about it. And the others is 11 Walnut and 149 South Country Road. There's no activity there to report. We did comment on telecommunication facilities being proposed for Shinnecock and for Major's Path and North Sea, both town-owned facilities. Apparently, it also said there was no impact after measuring and looking at the distances between historic resources and the project areas, project sites. I don't think there's anything else that's of significance. There was there is to be an educational awareness meeting about tax benefits for commercial properties in historic districts. That is going to be jointly sponsored, maybe by the town. I'm not sure. Council member Schiavone was taking up the contact on it, and the Southampton Museum was also part of the sponsorship of it, and that may happen in the coming months. I don't know what the progress on that is. I did have also a meeting of hour and 45 minutes with the supervisor. As I indicated in a memo to you, that a lot of it was nuts and bolts about, how applications are made, how do they come to the Landmarks Board, and how are they dealt with, and what happens. And I did bring up a number of issues that we've constantly faced about resources, about enforcement for illegal demolitions and renovations that escape coming to the Landmarks Board until after the fact, when we are asked to legalize them, quote unquote legalize, which is a word you don't find in the code. So, but in any case, she took those comments, and there was no promise of anything. So we'll see, how much she wanted to take the material, reflect on it. I gave her the timelines of the development of the Landmarks Board and all of its ups and downs over the period since it was created.
Those were great, by the way. Very, very well done.
Well, thank you. It was a lot I left out because, it's a matter of trying to make it digestible for somebody who's unfamiliar with where the Landmarks Board came from and why it does what it does, or why it doesn't do what it doesn't do. It's an interesting mystery to it too. So with that, I don't know if you have anything you want to add or comment on the business tonight or otherwise. No. I know it is 10:14. If there is nothing further, hearing nothing further, the meeting is adjourned at 10:14. Thank you all.
Thank you.
It's good at 10:15.